Everyone inside the church froze the moment the black woman, Arielle, stepped in. It was like the air itself stopped moving. Sable Benton, the sister, dressed in white, spun around and pointed at Arielle as if she were a threat. "You shouldn't be here," Sable shouted. Her voice wasn't loud. It was violent, sharp enough to make a baby cry in the back row. Arielle felt hundreds of eyes burn into her skin. Callum, the billionaire boyfriend everyone whispered about, stood beside her, jaw tight, hands shaking around hers. He wanted to say something, but his sister wasn't done. Then the groom, Ezra Benton, did something nobody could make sense of. He walked straight toward Arielle, slow, steady, ignoring Sable's hiss, ignoring the pastor who whispered, "Oh God," under his breath. Ezra stopped right in front of her, looked up at her like she was someone important, someone he respected. And then he bent down. A full bow. "Good to see you again, boss," he said. The crowd lost its mind. People stood. Someone dropped their phone. A woman cried out. The whole wedding threatened to explode. Arielle's heart slammed against her ribs. She had no idea this moment would come back to her like this. Loud, messy, dangerous. But to understand why the groom bowed, why Sable hated her, why the whole day was already falling apart, you have to go back. Back to before the wedding. Back to where everything began. Before we dive more into the story, I want to know something. Where in the world are you watching this from? Drop your city or country in the comments. It means more than you know. Every time I see someone watching from a different place, it reminds me how stories connect all of us, no matter our backgrounds, no matter our struggles. So tell me, where are you watching from? Now let's begin. Arielle Rhodes was already shaking before she stepped onto the Brigham estate. She was 27, smart, steady, and stronger than life ever gave her credit for. But the moment she entered the garden wedding, all she felt were eyes slicing into her. Cold stares, curling lips, whispered judgments that stung like sparks. Callum Brigham, her billionaire boyfriend, held her hand tighter than usual. His grip wasn't comforting, it felt like fear. She noticed the tremor in his fingers. That alone told her the truth. He knew today would be war. They had barely taken 3 steps into the ceremony space when the bride, Sable Brigham, Callum's older sister, locked eyes with Arielle. The hatred in that look was immediate, violent. She didn't blink. She didn't hide it. She stared as if Arielle's presence itself was an attack. People turned, muttered. A few outright sneered. Arielle lifted her chin, refusing to shrink. She had grown up fighting poverty, fighting to get through school, fighting to survive after losing her grandmother. Compared to that, some wealthy stranger's disgust was nothing. Or so she told herself, right until she saw Sable's jaw tighten like she was preparing to spit venom. "Just stay close," Callum whispered. But his voice cracked. He knew his sister. He knew the danger. Then, out of nowhere, the groom, Ezra Benton, walked toward them with a calmness that didn't match the storm in the crowd. Tall, collected, golden hair tied back neatly. His eyes, soft, kind, landed directly on Arielle, not Callum. And something in his expression broke every rule of this wedding. Ezra reached her, paused, then bent down, one knee slightly lowered, bowing his head like she was someone sacred. "Boss," he said, warm, respectful, almost relieved to see her. The entire wedding erupted. What did he call her? Is he serious? Why is he bowing? Did he just call her? Arielle froze. Callum stiffened. The air turned electric, ready to snap. Ezra rose slowly, his eyes never leaving Arielle's, filled with a gratitude she did not understand. This wasn't just a greeting. This was history. This was secret. This was dangerous. Callum stepped forward, instinctively shielding Arielle, but even he looked shaken. "Ezra, what are you doing?" Before Ezra could answer, before Arielle could breathe, before Callum could pull her back, Sable saw it. She didn't walk. She didn't rush. She charged. The bride hurled her bouquet to the ground and stormed across the aisle, wedding guests stumbling out of her way as she screamed, "Are you out of your mind?" She jabbed her finger toward Arielle, her face twisted with pure hatred. "You." Sable's voice broke into a hysterical shriek. "You do not belong here. Not today. Not ever." And she lunged straight for Arielle. Sable's scream, "You shouldn't be here," hit Arielle like a brick to the chest. The wedding froze. Guests gasped. Callum's grip tightened around her wrist. And just as Sable lunged, the moment shattered into memory, dragging Arielle backward into the life she came from. Atlanta. Summer heat. Age 10. Arielle stood on the porch of her grandmother's small blue house, watching her parents' car disappear for the last time. They had yelled all morning about money, about bills, about who was tired of trying. The door slammed. Tires screeched. And then it was over. Her grandmother, Rose Rhodes, gently placed a hand on Arielle's shoulder. "Baby," she whispered, "sometimes people leave because they don't know how to stay. But you're gonna grow roots so strong no storm can take you." Arielle believed her. She had to. Growing up, she found safety in art. Not drawing for beauty, drawing for survival. When kids bullied her for her thrift store clothes, she drew stories to escape. When her grandmother worked double shifts as a nursing assistant, Arielle sketched in the quiet house to keep loneliness from swallowing her whole. By 15, she knew what she wanted: to become an art therapist, to help people heal the way art had helped her, to give kids hope where she once had none. Her grandmother cheered her every step. Even in her old age, tired joints, fading eyesight, she was Arielle's biggest fan. "You're gonna save lives with them hands," she'd say, tapping Arielle's fingers. "Just you wait." Then the world shifted again. Years later, after her grandmother's passing, Arielle worked 2 jobs in Atlanta: art studio assistant by day, barista by night, while taking community college courses whenever she could afford them. Life was a grind. Hope felt heavy, but she kept going. One evening, her art instructor insisted she attend an upscale fundraiser downtown. "You need to meet people. People who can open doors," he urged. Arielle didn't belong in that marble hall with chandeliers and a silent auction priced higher than her yearly income. But she walked in anyway, wearing her best thrifted dress and the confidence her grandmother had taught her. That's when she met Callum Brigham. He wasn't what she expected a billionaire to be. He wasn't loud, arrogant, or polished. He was quiet, observant, lonely in a way she recognized immediately. He stood in front of one of her sketches, the only student piece on the wall, studying it like it mattered. When she shyly told him she'd made it, he smiled in a gentle, genuine way. "This feels like someone trying to breathe," he said. "Are you an artist?" She wanted to say no. She wanted to shrink. But instead, she nodded. Callum asked about her dreams, her goals, her childhood, and he listened like every word meant something. She hadn't felt seen like that in years. For the first time, she allowed herself to imagine a future that wasn't shaped by fear. But that fragile warmth didn't last long. As she walked toward the refreshment table, she slowed, because 2 wealthy attendees stood just a few feet away, speaking low but not low enough. "That girl," a woman scoffed. "She's adorable." "A little charity case for Callum." "Please," a man replied. "He'll get bored." "He always does." Their laughter sliced through her chest. Arielle froze. Their words echoed. Charity case. The same words she thought she'd outrun. And just like that, the memory snapped, dragging her back to the present. Back to Sable raging toward her. Back to the wedding ready to explode. The memory of being called a charity case still burned when the next blow came. At that same fundraiser, the night everything began to shift, Arielle stood near a display of sculptures when a sharply dressed older woman tapped her shoulder. "You," the woman said, waving a half-finished champagne glass. "I need another drink. And bring some napkins. This place is filthy." Arielle blinked, confused. "I'm not staff." The woman scoffed, looking her up and down. "Aren't you?" Her tone wasn't innocent. It wasn't a mistake. It was a judgment dressed as a question. Before Arielle could respond, Callum stepped between them like a shield. His jaw clenched, his voice cold. "She's a guest, and you owe her an apology." The woman's face paled. "Mr. Brigham, I didn't realize." "You realized exactly what you were doing," he snapped. "Leave. Now." The woman scurried off, the crowd parting for her. Arielle watched, stunned, not just by the insult, but by Callum's reaction. Most rich people she had met looked the other way when someone like her was disrespected. They certainly didn't confront their own guests. Callum exhaled, turning to her. "I'm sorry. I should have stayed with you." "You didn't do anything wrong," she whispered. "Yeah," he said quietly. "But she did." For a moment, calm settled between them, the good kind. He walked her to the balcony to escape the noise. The city lights glowed against the night sky, and Arielle felt the tension ease from her shoulders. "People like her have been around my whole life," Callum admitted. Don't let her make you small. Arielle's heart tightened at the sincerity in his voice. He was wealthy, yes. Privileged, yes. But he wasn't numb. He wasn't blind. He cared. Deeply. Maybe too deeply. Why do you talk like you're not one of them? She asked softly. Because I'm not, he said. Then he sighed. A long, heavy, tired sigh. My family, they're complicated. Arielle listened as he explained. His father? A business mogul who measured worth by money and alliances. His mother? A detached, elegant woman whose love was conditional and cold. His sister, Sable? The favorite child, groomed to inherit power, status, the Brigham name, and fiercely protective of anything she believed belonged to her, including social hierarchy. Callum looked away as he spoke. They smile in public, but behind closed doors, everything is about appearances. Control. They tolerate me as long as I don't embarrass them. And me? Arielle asked quietly. What would I be to them? His silence was painful. Finally, he said, someone they'd rather not see. It stung, but it was honest. He turned to her again, desperation flickering behind his eyes. I didn't want to tell you this tonight. Not here, but I need to be honest. Arielle's chest tightened. About what? Callum swallowed hard. I haven't told my sister about you. Arielle's stomach dropped. He wasn't finished. She doesn't know you exist, he whispered. Because if she did, she'd try to destroy you. Dinner with the Brighams was supposed to be informal, according to Callum. A simple family meal. A chance to introduce Arielle without starting a war. But the moment Arielle stepped into the candlelit dining room, long table, heavy silverware, portraits of dead ancestors lining the walls, she knew she was walking into an ambush. The extreme hit first. Callum's mother, Marjorie Brigham, didn't even wait for the salad plates to be served before leaning forward with a surgical smile. So, Arielle, what exactly is it that you do? Arielle kept her tone polite. I'm an art studio assistant right now. I'm a studio assistant? Marjorie cut in. So, not a real career. Callum stiffened. Mom. And your family? Marjorie continued, pretending to examine her napkin. Are they local? Employed? Educated? Arielle's throat tightened. My grandmother raised me. She passed last year. I'm working toward. So no family support, Marjorie concluded. And no degree yet. Across the table, Callum's father barely hid his smirk. Arielle felt heat rise in her cheeks, embarrassment mixing with anger. She wanted to stand up, walk out. But Callum reached under the table and squeezed her hand. You don't need to explain anything, he whispered. Marjorie's stare was cutting. My son has worked hard to maintain the family name. He cannot afford distractions, especially from someone who doesn't understand our world. That was it. The blow Arielle expected. The one that bruised worst. Before Arielle could speak, a calm voice from behind her said, That's enough, Marjorie. A man stepped forward with a gentle confidence. Neat suit. Kind eyes. A softness Callum didn't have. Ezra Benton. The groom-to-be. Sable's fiancé. But he didn't look like a man excited to join the Brigham dynasty. He looked trapped. He sat beside Arielle without asking permission, offering her an apologetic smile. I'm sorry you had to hear that. Not everyone at this table remembers what basic decency is. Marjorie gasped. Ezra. Ezra ignored her, turning to Arielle. I've read about art therapy programs. They change lives. It's incredible work. Arielle blinked. She wasn't used to kindness in this house. Callum relaxed a little. Ezra's one of the few sane people here. Ezra chuckled softly. Don't give me too much credit. As dinner went on, the atmosphere calmed. Ezra asked Arielle about her grandmother, her art, her dreams. He didn't interrupt. He didn't patronize. He listened, truly listened. For the first time that evening, Arielle felt seen. What she didn't notice was the way Ezra spoke, as if he envied her freedom, as if he wished he'd chosen another life, as if he wanted out. They bonded. Respect grew fast, quiet, simple, undeniable. But their peace ended the second Sable entered the room. Her heels clicked sharply across the floor. Her eyes landed on Ezra and Arielle sitting close, talking quietly, and her face twisted into pure, unfiltered jealousy. What? She snapped, voice cracking like glass. Is going on here? Ezra sat up straighter. Sable calmed down. No, Sable shouted, pointing at Arielle, her voice echoing through the dining hall. Why are you talking to her? Sable didn't bother lowering her voice. She marched straight toward Arielle with the fury of someone who had waited years for a target. You think I don't see what's happening? She spat. You show up here, batting your eyelashes at my fiancé, trying to get cozy with my brother. What's your angle? Arielle blinked, stunned. I'm not trying. Oh, please. Sable cut her off with a laugh dripping venom. This is classic gold digging. Find the rich, lonely air. Play the humble, sweet. I'm just an artist act. It's pathetic. Callum stood so fast his chair screeched. Sable, don't talk to her like that. Why shouldn't I? Sable snapped. Everyone here knows what she wants. Enough. Callum roared, a sound Arielle had never heard from him. You don't know anything about her. Sable folded her arms, eyes blazing. I know a leech when I see one. The room went silent. Ezra stepped in then, placing himself slightly in front of Arielle, voice calm but firm. Sable, that's not just rude, it's cruel. Stay out of this, Sable hissed, rounding on him. You don't get to take her side. I'm taking the side of basic human respect, Ezra replied. The tension thickened until it felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. And then, just as suddenly, Sable turned and stormed out, her heels punching the floor with every step. The calm that followed felt fragile. Callum ran a hand through his hair, exhaling shakily. I'm sorry you had to hear that. She's always been like this. Arielle swallowed, still trembling. Why does she hate me so quickly? She doesn't even know me. Callum hesitated. It's not about you. It's about me. Arielle frowned. What do you mean? He sank back into his chair, voice low. Sable wanted the inheritance. All of it. But my father split it evenly between us. She thinks I stole something that belonged to her. She thinks anyone close to me is a threat. Arielle felt a pang of pity. Sable wasn't just hateful. She was poisoned by her own ambition. Ezra sighed and leaned against the table. You're not the first person she's tried to push out. She's under a lot of pressure. Arielle looked at him. Pressure from what? Ezra hesitated, then lowered his voice. This wedding. It's not for love. It's strategic. Callum's head snapped up. Ezra, don't. No, she deserves to know, Ezra insisted. Then, softer, to Arielle, Sable's father owns 3 companies linked with my family's investments. This marriage merges them permanently. I didn't want this arrangement. But my father pushed, and Sable's father pushed harder. Arielle's heart sank. So you're marrying for business? Ezra nodded, eyes dark with exhaustion. If I bail, I sink 2 families' empires. If I stay, I lose myself. Arielle understood his unhappiness then. He wasn't cold, he was trapped. Callum stood, jaw tight. You don't deserve that. And Arielle doesn't deserve Sable, Ezra added. Before anyone could speak again, the dining room doors burst open. Sable stood there, face red, eyes wild. She pointed at Callum with trembling fury. Don't bring her to my wedding, she warned, voice low and shaking with malice. I swear, Callum, if she shows up, there will be consequences. The invitation arrived like a threat wrapped in gold foil. A pristine white envelope embossed with the Brigham crest appeared in Arielle's mailbox 2 weeks after the explosive dinner. No return address. No warm greeting. Just her name written in sharp, practiced handwriting. Inside was a formal wedding invitation. Heavy paper, gold lettering, unnecessarily elegant. But the real message was the note tucked inside. A single line, in red ink. Know your place. Sable. Arielle's hands trembled. Her stomach flipped. The message wasn't subtle. It was a warning dressed as courtesy. A way of telling her she wasn't welcome, while pretending to include her. The extreme moment hit hard. Humiliation. Rage. Fear. All at once. She dropped the card on the counter and sat down, fighting tears. The calm came only in memory. Arielle walked to her grandmother's old room, the one she refused to clean out after the funeral. She sat on the edge of the bed, surrounded by the familiar scent of lavender and old books, and let the silence wrap around her. She pictured her grandmother rocking in her chair, humming old gospel tunes. Rose Rhodes always knew how to slice through turmoil with a single sentence. What would you say to me now? Arielle whispered into the empty room. Her mind filled in her grandmother's voice, warm and steady. Baby, you don't fear people who show their teeth. You fear the ones who smile while sharpening the knife. Arielle closed her eyes. So what do I do? Go. Stay away? What if I make things worse? Another memory floated up, her grandmother resting a hand on her cheek, saying, "You never dim your light because someone else is blinded by it." Tears slid down Arielle's face. She wasn't having a real conversation, but the wisdom felt alive, guiding her the way it always had. That night, Callum found her staring at the invitation, jaw clenched. "Arielle?" he asked softly. She handed him the note. His eyes hardened. "She actually wrote this?" "She doesn't want me there," Arielle whispered. "She doesn't get to decide that," Callum said. He stepped closer, cupping her face, voice trembling with protectiveness. "We're going. Together. I'm not letting her bully you out of living your life." Arielle shook her head. "You don't understand how bad this could get." "No," Callum said firmly. "You don't understand how bad it already is." That startled her. "What do you mean?" Callum hesitated. Something dark flickered across his expression. A secret he'd been holding on to. A truth he didn't want to speak. "Arielle, there's something about Ezra. Something Sable doesn't want anyone to know." Arielle's heartbeat quickened. "What kind of something?" Callum swallowed hard, eyes shifting toward the floor. "He told me the real reason he can't back out of the wedding. The reason he's trapped. And if this comes out," Callum exhaled shakily, "it could destroy him." Arielle's blood ran cold. "Callum, what's secret?" He opened his mouth, but the doorbell rang, loud, urgent, cutting him off. And Arielle felt it in her gut. Whatever waited behind that door was about to make everything worse. The doorbell thundered through the house like a warning shot, but Callum didn't move to answer it. His eyes stayed locked on Arielle, tension thick enough to cut. "Arielle," he said, voice low, "you deserve to know the truth. Ezra isn't just Sable's fiancé. He and I, we have history." That was the extreme moment. Sharp, immediate, disorienting. "What kind of history?" Arielle asked. Callum exhaled, shoulders sinking. "He used to work for me." She blinked. "Work for you? Like a regular employee?" "Yes. Before he became the Benton family's golden boy." Callum rubbed the back of his neck. "Ezra's brilliant, but he didn't come from money. He earned everything. And when he joined my tech startup years ago, we connected. He understood pressure, expectations, fear of failing people." Callum paused. "He wasn't just an employee. He was my closest friend." Arielle felt the ground shift beneath her. Ezra had never mentioned any of this. Neither had Callum. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because the story doesn't paint me in a good light." The calm flashback unfolded in Callum's mind, and he spoke it slowly, like confessing. He described late nights in the office, the two of them sitting on the floor surrounded by empty Red Bull cans, laptops overheating on their legs. He described the darkness he'd fallen into after his father died, the panic attacks, the self-blame, the nights he'd show up to the office drunk because it felt safer than being alone. And then he described Ezra. Ezra finding him passed out at his desk. Ezra driving him to therapy even when Callum yelled and resisted. Ezra covering for him during investor meetings. Ezra refusing to abandon him when everyone else did. "He was the first person who didn't treat me like a paycheck," Callum whispered. "He cared about me as a human being, not as a brigand." Arielle listened, surprised by the tenderness in Callum's voice. This was a part of him she'd never seen, a wounded, lost version of the man she knew. "So what happened between you?" she asked. Callum's jaw tightened. "Sable happened. When she found out Ezra and I were close, she started planting seeds. Telling Ezra I looked down on him. Telling me he was using me. Slowly poisoning everything." Arielle felt a chill crawl up her arms. Typical Sable. Broken things were her favorite toys. Callum continued. "We drifted apart. He left the company. Started working for the Bentons. And Sable made sure we never rebuilt anything." He paused, eyes haunted. "But there's more." Arielle's pulse quickened. She sensed the next twist coming like a storm building behind the horizon. Callum finally spoke the words he'd been holding back. "Ezra didn't just work for me, Arielle. He saved me." "What do you mean?" "He saved my company." Callum swallowed hard. "I almost destroyed it." Arielle's breath caught. "Destroyed?" "Callum." He nodded slowly. "I made a reckless deal, a disastrous one. It almost bankrupted us. Ezra found the error, worked nights for weeks, rebuilt the model from scratch, and convinced the investors not to pull out. He did all that while pretending it was me." Arielle stared at him. "He protected your legacy," she whispered. Callum nodded. "And I let Sable push him away." Silence thickened between them. And just when Arielle thought the revelations were done, another truth hit her like a freight train. One Callum hadn't said outright, but hung in the air, unmistakable. Ezra didn't just save the company. He saved Callum's life. Arielle opened her mouth to speak, but Callum's phone buzzed violently on the table. He looked at the caller ID. His face went white. "It's Ezra," he whispered. "And he never calls me." Arielle felt her heart slam against her ribs. She knew this wasn't going to be good. The pre-wedding dinner felt like walking into a lion's den wearing a sign that said "Bite me." Arielle stepped into the Benton Estate ballroom with Callum at her side, but it didn't matter. Eyes snapped toward her instantly. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Forks hovered midair. A wave of whispers rolled through the room like a foul odor no one wanted to admit they smelled. That was the extreme moment. Sharp, ugly, impossible to ignore. "She's the girlfriend?" someone muttered. "Did Callum pick her up from a scholarship program?" Bold of him to bring that. Arielle pretended not to hear. Pretended the icy air didn't sting. Pretended her skin wasn't burning under the weight of all the stares. But Callum heard. His grip on her hand tightened until his knuckles went white. "Stay close to me," he whispered. Before Arielle could respond, Ezra appeared, smooth, polite, and somehow managing to radiate calm even in chaos. "Arielle," he greeted warmly, stepping between her and a cluster of gawking guests. "Your dress is beautiful. You're easily the best-dressed person here." Some guests blinked, uncomfortable with his friendliness. Others scowled, but Arielle exhaled in relief. Ezra bent slightly toward her, voice low so only she could hear. "If anyone bothers you, give me a signal. I'll handle it." It wasn't dramatic or loud. It was steady, respectful, protective in a quiet way. Ezra didn't make a scene. He didn't try to white knight her. He simply stood between her and cruelty. That was the calm, a small island of safety in a storm. He guided her to the table, pulling out her chair while glaring at a man who'd just muttered something that included the word exotic. The man looked away instantly. Arielle sat beside Callum, Ezra on Callum's other side. They formed a kind of shield around her. But as soon as Sable walked into the room, the temperature dropped another 10 degrees. She wore a white sequin gown like she owned the sun. Her smile looked pasted on, beautiful but dead behind the eyes. When she saw Arielle seated, comfortably, confidently, her jaw ticked. Ezra's posture stiffened. Callum muttered, "Here we go." Sable approached the head table, her heels cracking against the marble floor like gunshots. She didn't greet Ezra, didn't greet Callum. Her gaze locked onto Arielle like a predator scenting fresh blood. "Arielle," she said sweetly, "so glad you could join us. We weren't sure you'd fit in." Callum's hand covered Arielle's thigh, grounding her. Ezra's fingers tapped lightly against his glass, his tell for "don't react yet." Sable clapped her hands loudly. "Everyone," she chimed. "Before dinner, I thought we'd play a little game." A photo slideshow flickered to life on a giant screen behind her. Arielle's stomach dropped. She didn't know what Sable planned, but she knew it wouldn't be innocent. "We're calling this game." Sable paused dramatically, smiling directly at Arielle. "Where are they really from?" Arielle froze. The crowd laughed, uncomfortable giggles mixed with delighted cackles from Sable's friends. She wasn't just humiliating her. She was making Arielle the punchline. "Sable." Ezra stood, voice cold. "Turn it off." But Sable smirked, already clicking to the first slide. And Arielle felt her heart crack wide open as her childhood photo appeared on the screen, pulled from her private social media. The room gasped. The trap had been sprung, and Sable was just getting started. For a split second, Arielle felt the room collapsing in on her, heat rising up her neck, vision blurring, breath stuck somewhere between shame and fury. Sable clicked to the next slide. A baby picture of Arielle. Another slide, middle school. Another, high school graduation. Guests whispered, laughed, or stared in awkward silence. It was an ambush. It was cruel. But Arielle surprised herself. She didn't break. She straightened her spine, lifted her chin, and spoke before anyone else could. "My family is from Atlanta," she said clearly, her voice carrying across the ballroom. "And before that, Alabama. And before that, the same place many families like mine come from." Her gaze swept the room, calm, steady, unshakable. "But if you're asking where I'm really from," Arielle smiled softly, "I'm from a long line of women who survived things none of you could imagine, and still built a life out of love." Silence. Absolute, stunned silence. Sable's smile faltered. Someone at the far table clapped. Then another. Then more. Within seconds, the whole room applauded, not just politely, but genuinely. Arielle hadn't won because she fought back. She'd won because she didn't let Sable shrink her. That was the extreme moment, the shock of seeing Grace slice deeper than rage ever could. Sable's face twisted. She slammed her little remote down on the table and stormed off, heels cracking like angry thunder. Ezra watched her go with a look that said everything. This marriage is a mistake. Callum leaned toward Arielle, eyes filled with awe. You were incredible. Arielle exhaled shakily. I wanted to run. But you didn't, he whispered, squeezing her hand. You stood there and made them see you. Dinner finally began, tension slowly dissipating. Conversations resumed, quieter this time, but many guests offered Arielle respectful nods. A few apologized for the earlier whispers. And for a small moment, the world felt calm again. Later that night, back in their hotel room, Callum closed the door behind them and pulled Arielle gently into his arms. I need to tell you something, he murmured against her hair. Arielle leaned back to look at him. What is it? He cupped her face with both hands, expression trembling with sincerity. I've been thinking about our future, he said. And tonight just made it clearer. I don't want to wait anymore. Arielle's breath caught. Callum's voice dropped to a whisper. I want to marry you. Her heart erupted. Shock, warmth, disbelief all crashing together. Callum, are you serious? I've never been more sure of anything. He kissed her forehead, slow, reverent. As soon as this wedding is over, I'm buying the ring. Arielle smiled through tears. I love you. And I love you, he whispered. It was the calm, the soft glow after the storm. For a moment, everything felt beautiful, safe, certain. But when they stepped into the hallway to get ice, the night shifted again. A small envelope lay on the carpet in front of their room. No return address. No handwriting on the outside. Callum bent, picked it up, and opened it. Inside was a single strip of paper. Just 3 words. Leave before tomorrow. Arielle's blood turned cold. Because the handwriting, sharp, slanted, unmistakable, belonged to Sable. And this time, it wasn't a threat disguised as courtesy. It was a warning. Wedding morning arrived like a storm with no sky. Just pressure, heat, and something crackling beneath the surface. Arielle woke early, still shaken from the threatening note. She tried to tell herself it was empty intimidation, but her nerves clawed at her ribs. Callum was already pacing the room, phone in hand. Security swears no cameras caught anyone near our door, he muttered. Convenient. Arielle forced a breath. Let's just get ready. We'll sit in the back during the ceremony. Stay quiet. Avoid Sable. She didn't believe the words. She just needed something to hold on to. But the moment she stepped into the bathroom to put on her dress, the world shattered. Her gasp echoed so loud Callum sprinted in. Arielle? What? She couldn't speak. Her dress, the elegant emerald gown she bought after saving for months, was shredded. Not torn accidentally. Slashed. Violently. Maliciously. Cut down the middle like someone wanted to slice her in half. Fabric lay like a dead thing across the counter. Callum froze, then exploded. She did this. Sable did this. I swear to God. Callum, Arielle whispered, voice cracking. This is more than bullying now. No, he growled. This is sabotage. It was the extreme moment, an unmistakable escalation. No more hints. No more whispers. Someone wanted Arielle broken. There was no time to cry, no time to argue. The wedding was hours away. If Arielle showed up in regular clothes, it would only fuel Sable's cruelty. And Arielle refused to give her the satisfaction. Callum called Ezra. He answered on the first ring, breathless. What happened? Sable crossed another line. Callum snapped. Arielle's dress is ruined. Silence. Then Ezra said, meet me downstairs. 5 minutes. The calm came in the form of a woman Arielle had never met. Ezra wasn't alone in the lobby. His younger sister, Margot, stood beside him, short curls, honey-brown skin, glasses too big for her face. She looked Arielle up and down with a surprising softness. You're Arielle, Margot said. Ezra told me everything. Arielle flushed. I'm sorry, you shouldn't be dragged into this. No, Margot said firmly. My future sister-in-law is a problem. And good people don't let problems like her win. She handed Arielle a garment bag. I brought a spare gown because I don't trust Sable, she added with a dry smile. Turns out I was right. Arielle blinked back tears. This is incredibly kind. Thank you. Try it on. It should fit. We're the same size. Inside the bag was a simple satin dress, champagne-colored, elegant without being loud. The kind of dress that made grace louder than sequins ever could. Arielle changed quickly in a private room. When she stepped out, Callum's breath stopped. You look perfect, he whispered. Arielle felt whole again, maybe even stronger. But the peace didn't last. Ezra checked his watch, frowning. I need to get to the groom's suite. Sable will. A shout cut him off. A wedding planner, pale and breathless, rushed down the hallway. Ezra, thank God. We can't find him. Find who? Ezra asked tightly. The planner swallowed. The groom. You're supposed to be getting ready, but your room is empty. Your phone is on the floor. You're just gone. Ezra's face drained of color. Arielle felt her stomach plummet, and the hallway filled with one awful truth. The groom had disappeared. On his wedding day, chaos swallowed the wedding venue as planners sprinted through hallways, radios crackling, voices climbing into panic. But Arielle didn't wait. Something inside her, instinct or empathy or both, pulled her away from the noise. Callum shouted after her, Arielle, stay with me. But she was already moving. Down the back hallway, past the kitchen, past a line of waiters carrying trays of champagne, toward a door marked storage, staff only. A sound stopped her. A choked sob. It was soft, but unmistakable. Arielle pushed the door open, and there he was. Ezra Benton, always polished, always composed, sat on the floor between boxes of linens, elbows on his knees, hands gripping his hair. Tears streamed down his face. That was the extreme moment. Raw, painful, shocking. The groom, broken, hiding minutes before he was supposed to walk down the aisle. Arielle. His voice cracked when he saw her. You shouldn't be here. She knelt slowly, careful not to startle him. Ezra, talk to me. What's happening? I can't. He sucked in a shaky breath. I can't do this wedding. I can't marry her. Arielle swallowed. Then don't. You don't understand, he said, gripping his chest as if trying to hold himself together. It's not about her. It's about what happens if I walk away. Arielle stayed quiet, gentle, open. Ezra finally lifted his eyes, and something inside him shattered. He's blackmailing me, Ezra whispered. Arielle leaned in. Who? Sable's father. The words felt heavy, dangerous. Ezra wiped his face, but the tears kept coming. He found out about something I did years ago, something stupid, something I thought no one would ever discover. Arielle didn't push. She let the silence invite the truth out. Ezra took a ragged breath. My mother was sick. Insurance wouldn't cover her treatment. I forged financial documents at my job to get her the care she needed. Arielle's heart squeezed. Ezra, she lived because of it, he said. For 2 more years. 2 years I wouldn't trade for anything. But it was still fraud. Still illegal. Arielle listened, absorbing every trembling word. Sable's father confronted me with the proof. Ezra continued. He made it clear. Marry his daughter, and the evidence disappears. Call it off, and he leaks everything. I'll lose my career. My freedom. The calm moment was heartbreaking in its quiet honesty. Arielle sat with him, letting him breathe, letting him be more than the perfect groom everyone expected. You didn't deserve this, she said softly. Ezra shook his head, a humorless laugh escaping. I don't deserve anyone defending me, either. I let them drag me into their world. Their money. Their rules. He looked at her, really looked at her. You don't belong here, he whispered. You're too good. Too kind. People like Sable, they'll destroy you. Arielle placed a hand over his. Ezra, you're not alone in this. We'll figure something out. Callum wants to help. I want to help. Ezra's throat bobbed. I don't want Callum dragged into my mistakes. Too late, she said gently. He cares about you more than you know. Ezra's eyes softened, but only for a moment. The door slammed open. Arielle jerked around. Sable stood there. Her makeup perfect. Her gown gleaming white. Her smile venomous. And her eyes, sharp, bright, burning, locked onto Arielle kneeling beside her fiancé. Well, Sable hissed, stepping inside and shutting the door behind her. Isn't this cozy? Arielle's bloodstream went ice cold. Sable folded her arms, leaning against the wall with a slow, dangerous smile. Funny, she purred. I always knew you'd try to steal something from me. Sable's smile sharpened as she stepped farther into the storage room, her heels clicking like tiny hammers against concrete. Ezra scrambled to his feet, wiping his face, trying to look composed. Sable, this isn't what it looks like. Oh please, she snapped. Spare me the excuses. Her eyes sliced toward Arielle. And you? Arielle rose slowly, heart pounding. Sable closed the distance in 3 strides. Then it happened, swift, vicious, deliberate. Smack. Her palm cracked across Arielle's cheek, so hard her head whipped sideways. That was the extreme moment, sudden, violent. A line crossed so completely there was no turning back. Arielle staggered, her hand flying to her face. Pain flared hot. The room spun. Ezra shouted, Sable, what is wrong with you? Sable didn't look at him. She stared at Arielle, chest rising and falling like she'd been waiting years to do that. You think you belong here, she hissed. You think you can stand next to MY family, talk to MY fiancé, walk into MY wedding looking like. Stop, Ezra roared. But Sable wasn't listening. She was coming undone. You're nothing, she spat. A charity case. A social climber. The door burst open again. Callum stormed inside like a man on fire. Arielle. His voice broke when he saw her holding her cheek. Oh my God, what did you do? Sable turned slowly, still breathing hard. Callum, stay out of this. But Callum's expression was something Arielle had never seen before. Pure, molten fury. You touched her, he said, voice dangerously low. You put your hands on her. She was alone with my fiancé, Sable shot back. In a storage room. Use your brain. Ezra was crying. Callum shouted. Arielle was helping him. You don't know that. Sable snapped. You always take her side. Everyone always takes her side. Callum stepped forward until he was inches from her. If you ever touch her again, he said, voice shaking with anger. I swear I'll walk out of this wedding and never speak to you again. Sable blinked, stunned. Ezra stepped forward too. And if you ever talk to Arielle like that again, this wedding is off. Sable stared at both men, their fury, their disgust, their refusal to protect her behavior. And something in her cracked. It didn't break all at once. It fractured. Just a hairline split at first. Then wider. Then completely. Her eyes filled with tears, not sadness, but rage so consuming it made her tremble. You'll ruin everything, she screamed. Her voice wasn't human. It was guttural, unhinged, echoing off metal shelves and boxes. She grabbed a stack of linens and threw them, screaming again, louder. Everything. Everything. Arielle backed away instinctively. The room vibrated with her fury. You don't understand, Sable sobbed, clawing at her hair. You don't understand what's at stake. But before she could finish the sentence, she stopped. Frozen. Staring. Not at Arielle. Not at Callum. Not even at Ezra. But at the doorway, where Sable's mother stood. And she had heard every single word. The ceremony began under a sky too bright for the darkness churning beneath it. Guests filled the glass-walled chapel on the Benton estate, murmuring like a hive of anxious bees. The string quartet played something cheerful, something elegant, something that didn't match the tension hanging thick in the air. Arielle stood outside the doors with Callum, her cheek still tender from Sable's slap. She thought the whispers at the rehearsal dinner were bad. This was worse. The moment the doors opened for them to enter, the crowd turned like a single creature. Heads tilting, eyes widening, mouths tightening into thin, judgmental lines. That's her? Why did she come? I heard she caused a scene. Callum looks furious. Must be about her. The extreme moment hit like a wave of needles pricking Arielle's skin. Callum leaned close, whispering, ignore them. They don't get to dictate your worth. But the whispers followed them all the way down the aisle, clinging to Arielle like thorns. She tried to keep her breathing steady, tried not to let the sting of humiliation drag her under. Callum's hand never left hers. When they reached their seats, 3rd row, left side, Arielle exhaled, trying to gather herself. The music softened. Guests shifted in their seats. And gradually, a calm settled over her. She watched Callum, not the crowd. Watched the way his jaw clenched when someone glared at her. Watched the way he smoothed his tie 3 times, something he only did when nervous. He wasn't worried about the ceremony. He was worried about her. Arielle touched his arm gently. I'm okay. Really. He looked at her like he didn't quite believe it. After today, I'm rethinking everything about this family. Arielle squeezed his hand. We can get through this. Before Callum could answer, the music shifted, the cue that the wedding party was about to enter. A hush fell over the room. The side door opened. Ezra stepped in, dressed in a slate gray suit, more handsome than any of the photos on the invitations had suggested. But what struck Arielle wasn't his looks. It was his eyes. Red-rimmed, exhausted, but steady. Arielle held her breath. He walked down the aisle toward the altar, every step equal parts bravery and agony. As he approached their row, he glanced at Callum, then at Arielle. He slowed. Callum stiffened, unsure what Ezra would say, or if he should even look at him after everything. But Ezra ignored Callum first. He stopped directly in front of Arielle. And then, with a soft, warm smile that made the whispers around them die mid-breath, Ezra bent slightly at the waist. Not a bow, not a joking gesture. A respectful greeting. One that said thank you. One that said you saved me. One that said I see you, and you matter. Quietly, so only she and Callum could hear, Ezra said, "Morning, boss." Arielle blinked. "Boss." Ezra's smile deepened. "You're stronger than all of us. You held the line today." He added, softer. "You saved me from making the worst mistake of my life." Arielle's heart twisted. Callum stared, stunned. "Ezra, are you sure you want to go through with this?" Ezra didn't answer. He straightened, looked toward the altar, and in that split second, before he walked the final steps, Arielle saw it on his face. A decision. A dangerous one. A final one. He stepped forward, and the air snapped with tension, because Sable appeared at the opposite end of the aisle, eyes locked on Ezra like she could burn him alive with her glare. And Arielle knew. Something catastrophic was about to break. A collective gasp rippled across the chapel, sharp, involuntary, almost musical in its shock. The moment Ezra called Arielle boss, the audience reacted like someone had splashed cold water across a flock of gossip-hungry swans. Mouths fell open. Fans froze mid-flutter. One elderly woman whispered, "Did he just bow to her?" Another guest hissed, "What game is he playing now?" Someone else muttered, "That girl again. She's ruining everything." The room became a pressure cooker of scandal. Sable, already halfway down the opposite aisle, stopped dead. Her veil trembled with the force of her breathing. The bridesmaids behind her collided in a pile of silk and confusion. Ezra didn't look at her. He simply continued his slow walk toward the altar. But Callum's fingers dug into Arielle's hand, grounding her, even as his own shock flickered across his face. "What did he mean by that?" he whispered. Arielle swallowed, trying to calm the frantic pounding in her chest. The whispers around her buzzed like a swarm of angry wasps, but she forced herself to focus, not on the crowd, not on Sable's fury, but on Ezra's earlier words. "Morning, boss." For a moment, she'd thought it was a joke, a tease, a misstep. But as the music stalled and the officiant looked helplessly between the feuding bride and groom, Arielle realized something else. Something quieter. Something that settled over her like a warm, unexpected blanket. Ezra hadn't been calling her boss literally. He meant it emotionally. Symbolically. He was acknowledging the truth. Arielle had been the only steady person in the storm, the only one who saw him, heard him, believed him, the only one who helped Callum find himself again when Ezra couldn't. Ezra was thanking her, respecting her, honoring her in the only safe way he could. The realization softened her posture, eased her breathing. For a fleeting beat, there was calm. Callum noticed it too. His grip loosened. "You okay?" he murmured. Arielle nodded. "I think." He meant I gave both of you strength, when neither of you had any left. Callum exhaled. It wasn't a sigh. It was something closer to heartbreak, or gratitude, or both. But the moment of quiet understanding ended as quickly as it came, because Sable stepped forward, veil trembling wildly, bouquet clenched so tight the flowers were being crushed in her fists. "Stop." Her voice cracked like a whip through the chapel. The officiant flinched. A bridesmaid gasped. The quartet fell silent mid-bow stroke. Sable marched straight down the aisle toward Ezra, every click of her heels a warning shot. "This ceremony does not continue," she announced, voice shrill and shaking. "Not until someone tells me what, exactly, is going on." All eyes were on them. Ezra standing calmly at the altar, Sable quivering with rage, and Arielle and Callum frozen in their seats. Arielle's heart hammered a warning. Because Sable wasn't just jealous. She wasn't just angry. She was terrified of losing control, of losing the narrative, of losing everything she'd clawed for. Sable lifted her chin, eyes blazing. "I said stop," she repeated, louder, voice cracking. The ceremony is halted. Gasps erupted again. Callum whispered, Arielle, brace yourself. Because Sable wasn't done. Not even close. She turned, slowly, looking directly at Arielle. And her next words were a detonator. You. Stand up. The moment Arielle stood, Sable lunged, not physically, but with words sharp enough to draw blood. There she is. Sable shrieked, pointing a shaking finger at Arielle like she was calling out a criminal. The girl who ruined my life. The chapel erupted. People gasped. Someone actually dropped their purse. Even the officiant stumbled backward, gripping his binder like a shield. Arielle's breath hitched, but she didn't move. Callum rose beside her, shoulders squared, ready to defend. But Sable wasn't done. You think you can walk in here, she hissed. In your borrowed dress. Yes, I know. And ruin my wedding? My future? My family's plans. Arielle opened her mouth, but Sable cut her off with a scream so loud one of the flower girls burst into tears. You've been manipulating my brother. Manipulating Ezra. Manipulating everyone. Callum barked, Sable, stop. But Sable spun on him. You brought her here to embarrass me. To humiliate me in front of my fiancé's entire family. She threw her bouquet across the aisle. It exploded against a pew in a shower of petals. You always wanted to destroy me. Ezra finally spoke. His voice was soft. Deadly soft. Sable, he said, enough. Everyone froze. Ezra stepped forward, face calm but eyes exhausted. Stop blaming Arielle, he said. She didn't ruin anything. Sable's chest heaved. Ezra, please don't do this in front of. She didn't ruin anything, he repeated. Because there was nothing left to ruin. Silence. The kind that swallows the whole room. Ezra looked around, at the guests, at Sable's trembling hands, at Callum staring with a grim kind of understanding. Then he looked at Arielle. I haven't wanted this marriage for a long time, he said plainly. A stunned hiss rolled through the crowd. Sable's knees buckled, but she didn't fall. She clung to rage the way drowning people cling to driftwood. That's not true, she whispered. You love me. You said you loved me. Ezra shook his head, gentle but firm. I said I'd try. A pause. And I have tried. But this isn't a marriage. It's a transaction. A merger. Your father made that clear. Sable staggered backward as if he'd struck her. Her face crumpled, not with sorrow, but with terror. The kind that comes when the world you built starts cracking under its own weight. No, she whispered, shaking her head violently. No, Ezra, please. Not here. Not now. Everyone is watching. Ezra's voice stayed steady. I won't lie in front of a room full of people just to make you look good. For a moment, calm settled. Painful, heavy calm. Arielle watched Sable's shoulders shake. She didn't feel triumph. She felt something sadder, something hollow. Sable looked small, like a child whose tower of blocks had finally fallen. But then Sable's eyes rolled back. Her body swooned dramatically, and with a gasp loud enough to echo, she collapsed onto the aisle runner, limbs thrown at theatrical angles. Guests screamed. A bridesmaid shrieked, she's fainted. Someone called for water. But Arielle saw the truth instantly. Because as Sable hit the ground, a single eye cracked open. Just enough for her to peek. Just enough for Arielle to know. Sable was faking, and she was about to pull everyone down with her. The chapel erupts as Sable's collapse turns the wedding into chaos. Sable lay dramatically in the aisle, her dress fanned around her like a fallen angel. If angels kicked, screamed, and peeked through one half-open eyelid to make sure everyone was watching. Guests crowded in. Someone waved smelling salts. Another dabbed her forehead with a program. The chaos swallowed the chapel whole. And then, her father arrived. Charles Benton stormed down the aisle with the force of a man who believed money made him king. His suit was crisp, his jaw clenched, his eyes two polished stones aimed directly at Callum. You, he barked, stabbing a finger into Callum's chest. This circus is your fault. Callum didn't flinch. Charles continued, voice booming. You brought that girl. He flicked his gaze toward Arielle like she was trash, and now my daughter's wedding is ruined. Callum's face darkened. Arielle saw the muscles in his jaw tense. Charles stepped closer, lowering his voice to a venomous hiss meant to wound. I warned you about mixing with people beneath your station. Arielle's heart kicked painfully. And now look what you've done. My daughter is on the ground. Callum growled. Your daughter is pretending to faint. Gasps. A bridesmaid choked on her gum. Charles ignored him. He was a man bulldozing toward a threat, and Arielle was his chosen target. I'm going to make this very simple, he said coldly. If you keep seeing her, you will be cut off. Entirely. No inheritance. No future. No protection from the fallout this wedding will cause. The words hit like a slap across the chapel. Even Sable cracked one eye open. Everyone waited for Callum to crumble, to retreat, to apologize. He'd grown up in privilege. It was all he'd ever known. Arielle swallowed hard. If Callum needed his inheritance, she wouldn't blame him. She'd walk away before letting him lose everything for her. But Callum stepped back, shoulders squared, eyes blazing. I don't care. The words echoed like a thunderclap. The room froze. Charles spluttered. You what? Callum slipped his hand into Arielle's and lifted it high enough for everyone. Every whispering guest, every staff member, every person who doubted, to see. I don't care, he repeated. Cut me off. Take everything. I don't want anything that requires me to hate the woman I love to keep it. Arielle's breath caught in her throat. Love? He said love? The entire chapel shifted. Shock. Disbelief. A crack in the world Sable's father controlled. Even Sable, still unconscious, twitched like she'd been stung. For the first time, Charles Benton faltered. Before he could respond, a frantic voice came from the back of the chapel. Everyone, you need to see this. A hotel staff member nervously held up a tablet, screen glowing. Ezra stiffened. What is it? The staffer swallowed. Security found this. He pressed play. A video filled the screen. Sable, very awake, very aware, arguing with hotel employees. Her voice was unmistakable. I don't care how you do it. Ruin her dress. Make her leave. She's not welcome here. A loud gasp tore through the room. Sable's eyes flew open. Charles Benton went pale. Callum's hand tightened protectively around Arielle's. And Arielle stared at the screen, heart pounding, realizing this was the proof, the truth, the crack that would shatter everything. The entire chapel turns towards Sable as the video plays, exposing her sabotage to everyone. The video ended with Sable's own voice hissing, "Get rid of her, or you're all fired." Silence. A thick, choking silence that felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Sable scrambled to her feet, so fast her dramatic collapse might as well have never happened. That video, it's fake, she shrieked. Someone edited it. Someone. Ezra stepped forward. No, he said, voice calm, steady, devastating. It's real. Sable froze. Ezra turned to the staff member. Where did you find this? In the camera archives, the man said. It was flagged from last night. We thought you should see it before the vows. Gasps swelled. Sable's face twisted. You had cameras watching me? You. Ezra lifted a hand, silencing her without even raising his voice. And then, with the weight of a man carrying years of secrets, he faced the crowd. I'm calling off this wedding. The room erupted. Guests leapt up. Voices collided. The officiant nearly dropped his binder. Sable staggered back like he'd physically struck her. You can't cancel my wedding. I paid for the flowers. The venue. Ezra shook his head. You paid for nothing. Your father paid. And he paid so I would marry you. His words sliced through the chapel. Sable's father looked away, jaw clenched, caught in his own guilt. Ezra turned back to Sable. Anguish, exhaustion, freedom all tangled in his expression. I tried. I stayed silent. I let myself be pushed into this because I didn't want to ruin our family's business ties. But this, he pointed toward the screen. This is who you chose to be. Sable trembled with fury. Ezra inhaled deeply and looked across the room, right at Arielle. You showed me something different, he said softly. Arielle startled. Me? Ezra nodded. You didn't even know me, he said, voice carrying across the rows. And still, you helped me. You didn't try to impress me. You didn't want anything from me. You just listened. He swallowed. You reminded me what kindness actually is. Arielle's throat tightened. Callum looked at her with awe, like he was seeing her through someone else's grateful eyes. Ezra continued. Watching the way you love my best friend, the way you stand strong even when people try to break you. It reminded me who I used to be, who I want to be again. His voice steadied. And it reminded me I can't marry someone who destroys people to get her way. Sable screeched. You're humiliating me. In front of everyone. Ezra didn't look away. You humiliated yourself. A collective inhale rippled through the room. Ezra stepped to the center aisle, looked directly at the officiant, and said clearly, "This wedding is over." The officiant sagged with relief. Guests whispered, some pitying, some gleefully feeding on the drama. Sable's face crumpled. Her world had shattered in a public, irreversible explosion. But in that silence, in that breath after Ezra's declaration, a different energy filled the chapel. Calm. Not peace. Not closure. But a quiet moment between storms. Arielle let out a shaky breath. Callum squeezed her hand, gratitude and pride written across his face. Ezra approached her, stopping a respectful distance away. "Thank you," he whispered, "for seeing me when I was invisible." Arielle's eyes softened. Everyone deserves to be seen. Those words, simple, gentle, seemed to lift something from Ezra's shoulders. But the calm didn't last, because Sable suddenly let out a sound, a low, feral growl of pure rage. Her eyes locked on Arielle. "No," she snarled. You did this." And before anyone could react, Sable lunged toward Arielle. Sable's scream tore through the chapel like a jagged blade. Before Arielle could even step back, Sable was already lunging, hands curled, face twisted with the kind of rage that no longer looked human. Guests shrieked. Chairs toppled. A flower girl ran behind her mother's legs crying. Arielle froze. But security did not. 2 guards charged from opposite sides of the room, intercepting Sable mid-lunge. She thrashed like a wild animal, hair flying, dress tearing at the seams. "Let me go," she shrieked. "She ruined me. She ruined everything." Arielle stumbled backward into Callum's arms, breath shaking. The guards pinned Sable's arms as she kicked, clawed, and spat in every direction. Ezra looked away, shame pressing into the lines of his face. Callum stepped in front of Arielle, shielding her, voice booming. "That's enough." But Sable didn't stop. Even restrained, she screamed Arielle's name like a curse, her voice breaking into incoherent, furious sobs. The chapel became a storm of chaos, guests shouting, phones recording, bridesmaids crying, Ezra's parents apologizing to anyone who would listen. Finally, with one last guttural howl, Sable collapsed against the guard's arms, exhausted, sweating, and shaking. "Take her outside," Ezra said quietly. And just like that, the storm moved out of the chapel doors, leaving a stunned silence behind. Callum turned to Arielle. His voice softened instantly. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, though her knees trembled. "Just shaken." He cupped her cheeks gently, wiping away the tear she didn't even realize had fallen. "I'm so sorry," he said. "I never wanted you to be dragged into this." Arielle swallowed. "It's not your fault." He kissed her forehead, slow, steady, grounding. "Come with me," he murmured. He led her out a side door and onto a quiet garden patio. The contrast was jarring, the muffled chaos behind them, and the soft whisper of wind through magnolia trees ahead. Callum exhaled shakily, then took Arielle's hands. She blinked at him, still trembling from the adrenaline. "Callum." He looked at her with a tenderness that cracked her heart open. "Arielle, everything that happened today, everything we've faced these past months," his voice trembled. "It made one thing painfully clear. I don't want to spend another day of my life without you." Her breath caught. "I know this is insane timing," he said, laughing weakly. "And I know you deserve a perfect moment, not whatever this day was." "Callum." He squeezed her hands. "But I'm done waiting. Done letting my family's ugliness control my future. Done pretending my world isn't brighter because of you." His eyes shone. "I love you. And I want to build a life where you never question your worth again." Arielle's throat tightened, tears spilling over. Callum sank to one knee. Not with showy flair. Not with theatrics. Just raw sincerity. "Arielle Harper, will you marry me?" Her heartbeat stuttered. She smiled through her tears, soft, overwhelmed, breathless. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Callum. Of course, yes." He rose and kissed her, gentle, slow, like a man finally choosing his own life. The entire world seemed to exhale with them. But the calm didn't last. A sudden voice cut through the tranquility. "Well," a cold tone said behind them, "I see you've made your choice." They turned to find Charles Benton, Sable's father, standing at the patio entrance with a folder tucked under his arm and fury carved into every line of his face. Callum straightened. "I'm not interested in anything you will be," Charles interrupted. Because I've just filed a lawsuit against you. Arielle's blood ran cold. Callum stiffened. For what? Charles stepped closer, eyes icy. For emotional damages to my daughter and breach of our family's business agreement. Arielle sucked in a breath. What agreement? She whispered. Charles smiled darkly. The marriage that was supposed to save both our families. His eyes narrowed. And now it's gone because of you. He pointed directly at Arielle. The lawsuit hit like a bomb. Within 24 hours, news outlets had already begun circling the story like vultures. Benton heiress suffers breakdown at wedding. Billionaire son accused of ruining ceremony. Unknown woman at center of scandal. Arielle's name was everywhere. And the court fight began with brutal speed. Charles Benton's lawyers came after Callum with sharpened claws, accusing him of emotional sabotage, intentional interference, and collusion with an outsider to destabilize a merger. Arielle had never even heard of some of the terms they used, but each one felt like a slap. Callum held strong, but she could see the strain, the exhaustion in his eyes, the weight pressing on his shoulders. Sable, meanwhile, appeared at hearings wearing pale makeup, oversized sunglasses, and a trembling lip, always playing the victim. Arielle sat beside Callum every time, feeling the glares from across the courtroom. It was a battlefield, and they were outnumbered. The hearings dragged on for weeks, and with them came an emotional fog so heavy Arielle sometimes struggled to breathe. On one especially difficult evening, after a judge postponed a critical motion, Arielle found herself sitting at her grandmother's kitchen table, staring into a cup of tea she wasn't drinking. Grandma May, tiny and powerful as ever, set down a plate of cornbread and pulled up a chair. You're looking like you swallowed the whole world, May said gently. Arielle let out a shaky breath. I feel like everything is my fault. Nonsense. May waved a hand. Only guilty people should feel guilty. And as far as I know, you've done nothing wrong except love someone. Arielle's throat tightened. But Callum's losing everything. His business, his reputation, his family is turning against him. I'm ruining his life. Grandma May tilted her head. Tell me something, baby. Did you put hate in Sable's heart? No. Did you record that nasty video of hers? No. Did you force Ezra to tell the truth at that altar? No, but... Then why? May said, voice soft but firm. Are you taking the blame for choices other people made? Arielle couldn't answer. May reached across the table, warm fingers wrapping around hers. Strong women always get blamed when weak people fall apart, she said. But listen to me. You walking into that wedding didn't destroy anything. You revealed what was already broken. Tears filled Arielle's eyes. Real ones, hot and painful. You think Callum will be okay? She whispered. May smiled. That boy looks at you like you built the sun. He'll walk through any fire for you. But you don't let him walk it alone, you hear me? Arielle nodded, wiping her cheeks. I hear you. The calm wrapped around her like a quilt. Warm, steady, full of love she had forgotten she deserved. But the peace didn't last long. 3 days before the final hearing, Arielle and Callum sat in their apartment, reviewing deposition notes, exhaustion written in every movement. A loud knock echoed through the hall. Callum tensed. Great. Probably another reporter. He opened the door and froze. Arielle stepped beside him and gasped. Ezra stood there. But this wasn't the hollow, haunted Ezra from before. He looked sharp, intent, determined, and in his hand was a sealed envelope. Arielle. Callum, he said, voice steady but urgent. You need to see this. Right now. Callum frowned. What is it? Ezra took a deep breath. It's the one thing, he said, that can end the lawsuit, end Sable's lies, and destroy her father's case completely. He held the envelope out. Inside, something rustled, papers, documents, maybe something more. Arielle's pulse slammed in her ears. What's in there? She whispered. Ezra met her eyes. Proof, he said softly. Proof of the secret Charles Benton has been hiding for years, something that changes everything. Ezra hands them evidence powerful enough to blow open the entire case, and the truth behind the Benton family. Ezra stepped inside the apartment, shutting the door behind him like he was trapping the truth in with them. His hands shook, not with fear, but with the weight of what he carried. He placed the envelope on the table. This, he said quietly, is what my father, and your father, never wanted anyone to see. Callum frowned. Ezra, what are you talking about? Ezra's jaw tightened. Charles Benton didn't just force this wedding. He didn't just sabotage your life or Arielle's reputation. He's been stealing, laundering, hiding assets. For years. The room went still. Arielle felt her breath catch, her heart thud against her ribs. Ezra slid the documents out, bank statements, offshore account trails, falsified business transfers, and a long chain of emails revealing schemes tied directly to Sable's father. All written in Charles Benton's own hand. Callum whispered, "My God." Ezra met his eyes. He manipulated the wedding to merge your family's companies. He pressured me to marry Sable because he needed access to our holdings before everything collapsed. And when that didn't work, he blamed you. Arielle swallowed hard. Ezra, how did you even get these? Ezra hesitated. His voice dropped to a whisper. Because my father kept everything. Every fraudulent transaction. Every illegal deal. And before he died last year, he told me never to trust Charles. I didn't understand then. I do now. He pushed the stack toward Callum. This ends the lawsuit. This ends everything. Extreme tension burst into action. The next morning, the courtroom buzzed as Charles marched in with confidence, until Callum's attorney dropped the documents onto the judge's bench. The judge scanned the papers. Her expression turned from curiosity to disbelief to absolute volcanic fury. "Mr. Benton," she said sharply, "you are under investigation for fraud, financial coercion, and falsifying evidence." Charles sputtered, palms sweating. This is ridiculous. That woman, the judge interrupted coldly, is the only person in this room who has been telling the truth. Gasps echoed. Sable, seated beside her father, went ghost white. The judge slammed her gavel. The lawsuit against Callum Hart is officially dismissed. Effective immediately. Arielle exhaled, shaking, tears filling her eyes. Callum grabbed her hand. They had survived. But the storm was not done. Security escorted Charles Benton out as he shouted threats that nobody listened to anymore. Sable sobbed into her hands, not the theatrical sobbing from before. This was the cry of someone watching the world she built crumble. Ezra watched silently, sadness flickering across his face. Then he turned to Callum. "You're free," he said softly. "Both of you." Calm settled like a long-awaited sunrise. The Benton empire collapsed over the next few months. Investigations, charges, frozen accounts, businesses dissolved, partnerships severed. Ezra walked away from the ashes without hesitation. He moved to Chicago, opened a small community wellness center, and for the first time in his life, lived for himself. He visited often, always with warmth, always with gratitude. As for Arielle and Callum, they chose peace. They moved to a quiet town outside Savannah, where the magnolia trees stretched wide and the mornings felt soft instead of sharp. Arielle fulfilled her dream. She became an art therapist, helping children heal with colors and imagination, just like she once wished someone had helped her. Callum started a small consulting firm, nothing flashy, nothing loud, just enough to feel proud and build something of his own. They married under an oak tree with 10 people present. No drama, no cameras, just love. And every night, Callum whispered the same words. "You saved me." To which Arielle always murmured back, "No, we saved each other." In the quiet moments of their new life, Arielle often thought of that wedding, the chaos, the cruelty, the collapse. But she also remembered the courage, the truth, the unexpected allies, the healing that came after the storm. And she learned something powerful. Hate doesn't break hate. Love does. Kindness does. Courage does. The world is full of people like Sable, lost, angry, hurting others to hide their own pain. But it's also full of people like Ezra, trying to do better, even when it's hard. And people like Callum, willing to risk everything for what's right. And people like her, finding strength they never knew they had. Arielle understood now. You don't get to choose who wounds you, but you get to choose who heals you. If you're listening to this story right now, take a breath. Think about the people you judge too quickly. Think about the people who carry pain you cannot see. Think about the moments when kindness could change everything. And remember, love is brave, empathy is power, and choosing compassion, even when the world gives you every reason not to, is the boldest choice you'll ever make. Be the reason someone feels safe again. Be the reason someone believes in good again. Thank you for staying until the end. Now I want to hear from you. What did this story make you feel? What would you have done in Arielle's place? Tell me in the comments. Let's talk. And if you want to be here for every new chapter, hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications.